Hey gamers, today we're going to review Back to the Future Dice Through Time. Let's check it out. To set up for the game, each player is going to get their own player board of whichever era they want. They're going to get a car that matches that era and start it in the clock towers there. They're also going to start with 4 dice of their color, and you're going to start these little Biff tokens off on their designated spots on the board. You're also going to shuffle the item cards and deal them out to each era there. Depending on the level of difficulty, you can put 3 cards down for easy, 4 cards for normal, 5 for insane. You'll have these paradox tokens over the side, the Einstein tokens over to the side of the board there, the out of time marker right here, and then of course the event deck right over there. Next, you'll give this to the first player, and then you will begin. Now, this game is super simple. What you're going to do is just follow the player order right here. It says, first off, draw and place event cards. Depending on the number of players, determines how many event cards you'll be putting down on the board each round. If it's 2 players, you put out 3 cards. If it's 3 players, put out 5 cards. And if it's 4 players, put out 8 cards. Now, as you're taking these cards out, there's 3 types of cards here. One is an event that happens. You would resolve that event or keep that event open for that round. These things can just impact each round. There's not that many in the deck, but if one comes up, you'll just set it to the side and obey its rules for that round. So in this case, everyone would roll with 1 less dice. Eek, not good. Sometimes they're good too, but sometimes they're bad. Others, you're going to put in the events track here. So this one is from 1985, that's where it goes, and goes in Doc's lab. So I will put this one right here in Doc's lab. The next one says, hey, this is from 2015. It goes into the Clock Tower Mall. So I'm going to put this at the Clock Tower Mall. Now, the only difference between these two is if you see over in the top left-hand corner, or right-hand corner, excuse me, there is a Biff token. What you're going to do is you're going to put, that's a chicken there, which I think is funny. What you're going to do is you're going to move Biff to that location. Now, if multiple cards come out, you'll just move Biff, in the same era that have Biff tokens on them, you'll just move it to whichever Biff, you move Biff to whichever item or event that you want. Once you've resolved placing out all the events, then you will roll your dice. So everyone's going to roll the 4 dice they have assigned to them. Now, how to utilize these dice? Again, it's on your player board. Mr. Fusion lets you, or this little dice action, the flux capacitor, lets you move to any timeline of the same in the same space. So, for instance, if I was here and I had a flux capacitor die, I could spend it to move either here, here, or here. I don't have to, that doesn't count as one space. I can just go all the way there if I wanted to. But you just travel linear into that same era that you were in. Another one, lightning. Lightning just lets you re-roll all your unused dice. If you don't like the die you have, you can re-roll. That's usually probably the least effective die in this game. A wrench is the most powerful. It can count as any icon in the game, and any die can also move you a single space in the same timeline. So, for instance, orange could use any die to move up or left or right. If you have one of these die here, it lets you move anywhere across the board in your timeline. So pink could instantly go there, or if pink was here, he could instantly go up there. Punching, well, you know what that's for. That's for Biff. See, because you can't resolve an event if Biff is on it. So if Biff's on there, then you'll have to use one of these little punch icons to punch him anywhere on that timeline within his time that you want. Finally, there's the little Doc dice picture, and he will get rid of 2 paradox tokens on the board anywhere in time. These are paradox tokens. I'll tell you how these come out later. Now, once you've resolved and used all your actions, there's another thing you can do while using all your actions. I should mention this too, is Mr. Fusion. Mr. Fusion is great if you rolled doubles. These doubles can count as any single die action that you need. Because sometimes you're also going to need these actions to resolve the events. Like I have to pay a wrench to get that one. Or there's some more in here. Here's one that I have to pay one of the little arrow and wrenches. Or a lightning and a fist. It's depending on what you want. Now, what if there are multiple cards on the same area? Well, in that case, you would have to resolve all of the icons. Not just one, you'd have to resolve all the icons on there. And you're thinking, wow, it's up to 3 cards per area. Well, that could add up sometimes to more cards, more dice than you have to resolve it. Oh no, what would you do if something like this were to happen? Well, it's pretty simple. What you would do is, if anyone is in the past, if they have any unused die, they can just leave them in the past for someone else in the future to use. So for instance, if yellow player left his fist and blue player really needed a fist that round, he could use the fist left by yellow player. However, if pink player left this wrench in the future, well, no one could use it unless they went to the future because it's not around the past. I really, really love that. So you're basically trying to help each other out to resolve these events. Now, whenever you resolve an event, you will grab an item card of that error, and the item card, you can only hold up to 2 per player, but it tells you, hey, this is what year you need to return it at the clock tower. So I need to go back in time and get this doc letter back to 1885. Once I do that, I can set it aside over on the edge of the board and then grab one of these Einstein tokens over here on the board. These Einstein tokens are just various symbols of the die that you can put out in the game that any player can use. Now once they use it, it gets removed from the game. But like I said, there's all different icons of the die are in those Einstein tokens, so the more items you return, the easier it will get. Now once all players have performed their actions, we then move to advancing the out of time marker. What you're going to look at is the timeline. Which one has the most events? All right, let's say 1885 had the most events. Now if it's a tie, you always go to the past. So if 1985 and 1885 tied, then 1885 would go first. You would add up the events and any paradox tokens and then move the out of time marker that many spaces. So for this instance, there's only 2 events, we'd move it 2 spaces. However, if one of them had a paradox token on it, we would have moved it 3 spaces. All right? Now, how do you get paradox tokens? Well, it says afterwards you can add a paradox token. What would you do? Well, the one with the most events, you know, which would be that 1885 timeline, we would put another paradox token on there. Now, I can't put it here because there's already one here, but I could put one here. And if the next time this is still the biggest event, well, the out of time marker would only move 1, 2, 3, 4, but we wouldn't put another paradox token because you can't have more than 1 paradox token on one event. Again, clearing those is that dock die there. After that's done, you pass the first player marker and then start the round again. You keep going until one of 2 things happen. Either you have delivered all the items from the board, or this out of time marker reaches here and all players lose. And that's the game. Final thoughts, what do I think about the game? Well, I already have Back to the Future Back in Time, and I did not need this game. I don't need 2 Back to the Future games, at least that's what I thought. My little nephew bought this for me for Christmas. It was at a liquidation store, and he thought, since I love playing the other game, he thought he'd get me this one. And I thought, oh, that's nice, but I looked at this one a long time ago when I was comparing both games, and I chose Back in Time, and I don't need another Back to the Future theme. Well, looking at this one, it's pretty good. It's actually very fun, especially if you like, you know, Back to the Future 2 and 3. It has memories from there too. And at first, this was the one that was leading because of that. I wanted something that represented all 3 movies. But between the 2, I mean, if you just like the first movie, Back in Time is the better one. Barely though, because this one, really good, surprisingly good. I love that you're leaving your dice back in time for someone else to use later on. That is just ingenious. So if you're a Back to the Future fan, you probably go ahead, get 2. There are 2 different co-ops. There are 2 different co-ops. They got 2 different feels. True, I don't like the colors of this game, but that's basically it. Other than that, the game is very solid, and I actually do enjoy it. So oddly enough, there is room for 2 Back to the Future games on my shelf. All right, gamers, that's all the time I have for now. Till next time, you know what to do. Game on!